Good day, everyone. I am John Renal Bongkawil, and today I'll be presenting to you the group report of Group 3 on public expenditure analysis. So, what is public expenditure analysis? First, allow me to introduce to you the definition of what is public expenditure. So, here, public expenditure are the total spending by a government on goods, services, and transfer payments. This spending is financed through taxes and other government revenues and encompasses a wide range of activities from building schools and roads to providing social welfare program and national defense. So, public expenditure are like the money your family spends on things you all need. Imagine the Philippine government as your family. So, here how it works. The government's income, the government gets money from taxes you pay, like the income tax you pay on your salary. They also get money from other sources like fees for services. So here, the government spending, this money is used to pay for that benefit everyone, like building roads and schools. Just like your family needs a house, the Philippines needs good roads and schools for everyone to use. Aside from improving or building roads and schools, we have here providing healthcare, supporting farmers, and protecting the country. So public expenditure are all the ways the government spends the money it collects from taxes and other sources to make sure everyone in the Philippines has the things they need. So, let's go back to what is public expenditure analysis. Here, public expenditure analysis is a multifaceted field that examines government spending. So, it is not a simple yes or no answer. Instead, it's a process of evaluating the efficiency, effectiveness, and equity of government spending across various sectors. So, the goal of public expenditure analysis is to improve resource allocation, of course, and enhance government effectiveness. And by understanding how public funds are used, policymakers can make more informed decisions about budgeting, program design, and implementation that could lead to better public services and improve outcomes for citizens. So there are classification for public expenditures, and that is going to be discussed by our next reporter, our group mates, our very own April May Regidor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am April May Regidor, and I am assigned to explain and discuss about classification of public expenditures. Public expenditures are the lifeblood of government operations in shaping economies and societies. Governments spend taxpayer money on everything from healthcare to highways. To understand where and why funds are allocated, we classify public expenditures into three key categories: by nature, by purpose, and by transferability. Let's break this down. First classification is by nature. This focuses on how money is used for daily operations or long-term investments. First, revenue expenditure. Recurring costs to keep the government running. Examples: salaries for teachers, nurses, and police, pensions, office supplies, and interest on loans. These expenses don't create assets but are essential for daily governance. Second, capital expenditure. One-time investments in assets or reducing debt. For example, building highways, schools, or hospitals, repaying government loans. Drive long-term growth but require significant upfront funding. Why it matters? Balancing revenue and capital spending is critical for economic stability. Second classification is by purpose. This answers why the money is spent: to boost development or maintain essential services. First, developmental expenditure. Spending that directly fuels economic growth. For example, schools, hospitals, and vaccination programs, renewable energy projects, or tech innovation. Impact builds human capital and infrastructure for future prosperity. Second, non-developmental expenditure. spending on essential services not directly tied to growth. For example, military equipment and defense, debt interest payments, or fuel subsidies. Its impact ensures national security and instability but diverts funds from growth projects. The third and last classification is by transferability. This looks at how funds flow, as direct income transfers or tangible services. First, direct expenditure. Money redistributed with no goods or services in return. For example, welfare checks, unemployment benefits or pensions, subsidies to farmers or low-income households. Impact reduces inequality but doesn't directly boost productivity. Second, non-transfer expenditure, direct provision of goods or services. For example, building public parks or hospitals, running schools or waste management systems. Its impact enhances quality of life and economic capacity.
Good day everyone, my name is Nichola Dilis. My topic is all about the determinants of government spending. Government spending is influenced by a variety of economic and social factors. Key determinants include the size and growth of the economy, population, demographics, and the level of public debt. So additionally, social program infrastructure, project, and the needs to address economic imbalances also play a significant role. Here's a more detailed look at some of the key determinants. Economic condition refer to how or poorly a country's economy is doing. Here are some important parts of economic condition. First is jobs or employment. Are people able to work easily or many people unemployed? So job employment, when people find work easily, the economy thrives, leading to stable tax revenues and reduced welfare spending. High unemployment, however, demands increased spending on welfare and job creation program. Second is prices or inflation. Are the prices of the things like food, cloth, and fuel going up fast, staying the same, or going down? So prices or inflation is stable prices help maintain economic balance, while rising prices or inflation can increase cost for government project and essential services. So economic conditions shape spending priorities. A stable economy promotes jobs, manageable prices, and business growth. A struggling economy often sees how unemployment, rising prices, and business closures. Population dynamics is the study of how population of people or animals changes, and over time it took things like birth, deaths, migration, and age. So birth, how many babies are being born? So a higher birth rate adds to the population. Death, how many people are dying? So a higher death toll reduces the population. Migration, are people moving in or out of the place? Migration affects the total population size. Next is age. Are there more young people or older people? Their age structure impacts workforce availability and social services needs. Population dynamics help us understand how the number of people in a place changes. For example, if more babies are born and fewer people die, the population increases. Conversely, if many people live or fewer babies are born, the population might decrease. Social and political factors are things that affected how people and how country is run. Social factors are things that influence people's daily lives like education, how many people go to school and how well they are taught, culture, the tradition and beliefs people follow, family life, how families are structured and how they influence society, income, how much money people earn and how it affects their lifestyle. So social factors is education system, cultural preservation, family welfare, and income equality drives spending on programs that improve quality life. Political factors are about how government make decisions and create rules like laws, the rule that government set for people to follow, political stability, how strong and organized the government is, government policies, what government decide to do about issues like healthcare, education, and education. So political factors is all about laws, political stability, and government policies, influence decision or infrastructure, healthcare, defense, and economic growth. Efficiency and government spending. How will the government use to help the country? So the other factors is public debt and external debt. So public debt is high levels of public debt can constrain government spending as a portion of budget is allocated by debt servicing. So public debt is the money that a government borrows when it doesn't have enough to pay for the things like schools, roads, and or healthcare. The government promises to pay this money back later, often with extra money called interest. It's like when someone takes a loan, they get the money now but to have to repay it over time. External debt is borrowing from foreign sources. Can also impact government spending, particularly in developing countries, as it can influence the availability of funds for domestic programs. So external debt is the money of a country's borrow from other countries, foreign banks or international organizations like the World Bank. So it's like when a company asks for a loan from outside the country and promises to pay it back later with interest.
Once again, I am John Renal Bongkawil and I'll be continuing the report on impact of public expenditure and economic development. So, public expenditure can have a significant impact on economic development, but the relationship is complex and subject to debate. Under the positive impacts on public expenditure and economic development, we have here increased aggregate demand. Government spending creates jobs and boosts demand, leading to a multiplier effect. We have here the second impact, investment in human capital. Spending on education and healthcare leads to a more skilled and productive workforce, contributing to a long-term and economic growth. We have here the last positive impact, infrastructure development. Investment in transformation, communication, and energy infrastructure improves efficiency, lowers costs, and opens up a new economic opportunities. So we have here the negative impacts, inflation. If a government spending grows too fast without corresponding increases in supply, it can lead to inflation, reducing purchasing power. Second negative impacts, we have here the crowding out effects. Excessive government borrowing can lead to a higher interest rates, making it more expensive for businesses to borrow money and invest, potentially hindering private sector growth. So, the third impact, we have here the fiscal deficits. Sustained high government spending can result in large budget deficits and rising public debt, which can become unsustainably if not managed effectively. We have here some questions with regards to the real world examples. So we have here, did investment in infrastructure leads to economic growth? So the Build program in the Philippines, this ambitious infrastructure program launched in 2016 rather, aimed to improve connectivity and facilitate trade by building new roads, bridges, airports, and railways. While the program is still ongoing, initial assessments suggest positive impacts on economic growth. For example, the completion on the NLEX to XLEX connector road in 2020 is credited with reducing travel time and boosting economic activity in the surrounding areas. So Second question we have here, did education and healthcare spending result in higher productivity? The Philippines education system, the Philippines has made significant investment in education with a higher enrollment rate and a focus on expanding access to higher education. However, the country faces challenges in terms of quality and relevance with a skills gaps hindering productivity. While education spending has increased, the impact on productivity is not always immediately apparent. It takes time for investment in education to translate into a more skilled workforce and higher productivity. So, overall, it's challenging to definitively prove a direct causal link between infrastructure investment on spending on education and healthcare and economic growth or productivity. Many factors contribute to economic development, and isolating the impact of specific investments and is complex. However, it's generally accepted that these investments are essentially for a long-term economic growth and productivity. Continued investment in these areas coupled with efforts to improve quality and efficiency are crucial for the Philippines to achieve its economic goals.
Evaluation of government budget efficiency. In evaluating government budget efficiency, it involves assessing how effectively government resources are used to achieve desired outcomes and whether those outcomes are aligned with policy goals. It is a process of comparing actual spending against budgeted amounts, analyzing variances, and determining if the budget is realistic and adaptable. This evaluation helps identify areas for improvement in resource allocation and policy implementation. There are key aspects of evaluating government budget efficiency. First is the variance analysis. Variance analysis is a quantitative method used to assess the difference between planned and actual financial outcomes. Regularly comparing actual spending to planned budgeted figures is crucial, and by regularly reviewing and analyzing variances, businesses can gain valuable insights into their financial performance, leading to better budgeting, cost control, and overall financial health. Second is the impact assessment. Impact assessment is a structured process for evaluating the potential consequences of a proposed action or intervention on people and the environment. It aims to identify both positive and negative impacts and to inform decision making about whether to proceed with the action, how to modify it, or even abandon it altogether. Evaluating the budget effectiveness requires going just financial figures, and by considering the broader consequences of resources or spending decisions, government and organization can ensure that resources are allocated in a way that truly benefit the society and achieve its intended goals. It moves beyond simply tracking finances to understanding the actual positive change or lack thereof that spending produces. Third aspect is the alignment with the government priorities. Ensuring that an organization goals, programs, and activities are in line with the broader goals and objective of the government. This can involve aligning policies, funding, and implementation strategies to match national or local strategic priorities. The budget should reflect the government's strategic goals and policy. Evaluation should assess whether the budget effectiveness allocates resources to support these priorities. A well-aligned budget ensures that public resources are used strategically to achieve national goals, leading to better outcomes for citizens. Regular monitoring, evaluation, and transparency are crucial for maintaining this alignment. Next is the efficiency and effectiveness. Effectiveness focuses on achieving desired results and meeting goals, while efficiency focuses on maximizing output with the least amount of resources and efforts. In a sense, effectiveness is about doing the right things, while efficiency is about doing things right. Evaluating a budget requires considering both efficiency and effectiveness. Striving for both ensures that public resources are used wisely to achieve maximum impact and positive outcomes. Next is transparency and accountability. Transparency and accountability are two essential principles of good governance. Transparency involves making information readily available and understandable, while accountability means being responsible for action and decisions, often with clear mechanism for redress. In essence, transparency provides the information needed for accountability, and accountability ensures that actions are taken responsibly and effectively. A robust budget evaluation process should promote transparency and accountability in how government funds are used. Open data, clear explanation, regular reporting, independent audits, and mechanism for redress are all critical components of this process. Next is the performance budgeting. Performance budgeting is a result-oriented approach to allocating funds, shifting focus from inputs to outputs and outcomes. It also emphasizes linking resource allocation to the achievement of measurable objectives, promoting efficiency, accountability, and transparency in the use of public funds. Adopting a performance budgeting system where the budget is classified by programs and outcomes rather than just inputs and organizational structure can improve the connection between evaluation and budgeting. Next is the budget execution. Budget execution is the stage of the budgetary process where an approved budget is actually implemented, encompassing activities like collecting revenue, managing expenditures, and accounting for financial transaction. It's the phase where the funds are allocated to specific spending units and activities are carried out to achieve the objectives outlined in the budget. Evaluating budget execution is not just about checking numbers. It's about ensuring that public funds are used responsibly, efficiently, and effectively to achieve the intended outcomes. It requires a thorough examination of the entire process from fund release to expenditure, tracking, and internal controls. Lastly is the budget monitoring. It's the process of tracking and reviewing actual income and expenses against a budget or a planned budget to identify deviation, risks, and opportunities. It helps ensure financial goals are met, identify areas where spending might be excessive, and enables proactive adjustment to stay within the budget. Ongoing monitoring of the budget, including revenues, expenditures, and overall financial performance, is vital for identifying potential issues and ensuring timely adjustments. Proceed to methods of evaluating government budget efficiency. There are three methods. First is the variance analysis, second is the cost-benefit analysis, and lastly is the data envelopment analysis. Variance analysis is comparing actual spending against budgeted amounts and analyzing the differences or variances. For example, comparing actual revenue collected to projected revenue figures. By systematically comparing actual and projected revenue, government can improve their budgeting process, enhance the accuracy of future forecasts, and ultimately make better use of taxpayer funds. Next is the cost-benefit analysis. It is a structured process used to evaluate the feasibility of a decision or project by comparing its expected costs and benefits. It helps determine if the potential gains outweigh the associated expenses, guiding decision making in various fields like business, government, and policy development. Example: analyzing the cost of new public transportation system versus its benefit in terms of reduced traffic congestion, improve air quality, and increase public access. The final decision on whether to implement a new public transportation system should be based on comprehensive cost-benefit analysis that considers all relevant factors and uncertainties. The analysis should be transparent and accessible to the public to ensure accountability and informed decision making. Lastly is the data envelopment analysis. It's a technique that allows for measurement of relative efficiency of organizational units. The methodology's main strength lies in its ability to capture the interplay between multiple inputs and outputs, a process that cannot be satisfactorily really proved through traditional ratio analysis. Example is comparing the efficiency of different government departments in delivering public services, considering both inputs or resources used and outputs or services provided.
Good day everyone, I am Cherime Maravillon and I am going to tackle about trends and issues in public expenditure management. So let's begin by defining public expenditure management. So public expenditure management encompasses the entire life cycle of the government spending. It includes planning, budgeting, monitoring, executing, and evaluating. And it is not simply about spending money. It's about allocating resources to achieve national development goals. So efficient public expenditure management is fundamental for good governance, ensuring public accountability, and maximizing the impact of taxpayer money. So there are several significant trends in reshaping public expenditure management. So trends in public expenditures, it is likely a tool or a way in observing the changes of the government spending. So firstly is the results-based budgeting. From the word itself, result, it is more focused on the tangible outcomes rather than simply tracking inputs. So for example, instead of just allocating funds to build a school, RBB would set a target like to improve the student performance. In this example, the outcomes is the allocating of funds to improve student performance, and the input here is allocating funds to build a school. So the RBB is more focused on the outcomes. So mas pilion nila nga i-improve ang student performance rather than i-improve ang infrastructure or to build a school. Secondly is digitalization. So it is a revolutionizing financial management, enhancing transparency, efficiency, and accountability through digital budgeting dashboards, online procurement systems, and real-time data analysis. So, for example, a government might use a digital budgeting dashboard as a tool to track spending in real time. So, allowing them for better oversight and quicker adjustments. So because of that tool, the digital budgeting dashboard, ang government is dali ra nila ma-track ang changes, and then if naa siya adjustments, dali ra pud nila mahimo. Thirdly, fiscal sustainability. It remains a paramount concern, demanding careful management of public debt and prudent fiscal policies. So when we say public debt, it is a total money that the government owes to its creditors. And Prudent fiscal policy is about managing government finances responsibly to maintain economic stability and sustainability. So, to ensure long-term financial health. So, for example, a country might prioritize reducing its budget deficit. So, when we say budget deficit, it is when the expenses or the spending of the government exceeds annual budget. To reduce it, the government might cut unnecessary spending, or they will increase the tax revenue. So this ensures long-term financial health and reduce the risk of economic crisis. So finally, there's a growing emphasis on public procurement reform to combat corruption and improve value for money. So alongside a strengthening of internal controls and audit functions. Let's say, for example, in implementing strong internal controls, they will segregate the duties and regularly audits, and it can help identify irregularities and deter corruption. And by doing that, by strengthening internal controls and auditing regularly, it will prevent and detect fraud and mismanagement. Despite the positive trends, significant issues persist. Issues refers to a significant challenge or problem that affects the effective and efficient allocation, utilization, and monitoring of government funds. First is the limited fiscal space or constraints on government revenue often restricts the ability to fund essential services. So for example, a country facing economic hardships may have limited funds for healthcare, education, and or infrastructure projects. So because of the limited fiscal space or limited funds, a country is naasalay mga difficulties in choosing priorities. Og ahay lang iuna ang kuan ba, healthcare, education, or infrastructure projects. Second is the corruption and lack of transparency. It remain major obstacles, and di na to siya kalimod that nowadays is familiar na kayo na to ang corruption, and it leads to the misuse of public funds. So for example, a government official tagaan siya og public funds intended for a public project. Then ang mahitabo, dili niya siya ihapak for public project, but i-divert niya ang kwarta for personal gain para sa iyaan na. So di na siya for public but for personal. That is corruption. This undermines public trust and hinders development. Next is the weak institutional capacity. It includes insufficient skills and resources within government agencies. So it hinders effective implementation, of course. Like for example, a government agency might lack the expertise or personnel to effectively manage a complex project. So, ang mahitabo, magka-delay ang pag-implement sa project, and there will be inefficiency. The fourth one is the inefficient revenue collection. So due to low tax compliance and ineffective tax administration, further exacerbates fiscal constraints. Like for example, a country with high level of tax evasion. So when we say tax evasion, it is the illegal practices to avoid paying taxes. Like for example, underreporting income. Dili nimo isulti ang imong tinuod nga income kay if pananglitan dako na kag income mudako sab ang imong tax. So para makales ka sa tax, ang imong buhaton imo siyang i-underreport, which is na-consider na siya as tax evasion. So that might struggle to generate enough revenue to fund essential services. and it will lead to a vicious cycle of underfunding and further evasion. And finally, a lack of public participation. In the budget process, if limited ang citizen involvement, ang accountability and responsiveness in that particular government is limited sa. Like for example, a government might make budget decisions without consulting the public, without the opinion or wa siya nangutana sa iyang mga people ana nga place ug unsa ang ilang mga kinahanglanon ug mingon sila panalitan. They need water supply. Then ang government kay wala man siya ni consult adto sa public before siya nag-make of budget decisions, ang mahitabo sa project dili niya ma-meet ang needs sa mga tawo ana nga place, or simply ang project is poorly implemented. So dapat jud before magama ang government og decision, dapat nakakonsult siya sa public para mahibaw-an niya og unsa ang kinahanglanon ana nga place. I guess that would be all for our topic, and God bless us all. Thank you.